script libraries and
ओके सो आज दोबारा से हम रिएक्ट सीखने वाले हैं बिकॉज कल तो भाई कुछ ज़्यादा खास समझ में नहीं आया प्लस इट वाज प्रीटी कंफ्यूजिंग प्लस दैट वाज ओल्ड तो सिंटैक्स एरर ये सब कुछ उसमें अलग दिमाग खर्च हो रहा था सो नाउ वी गोना स्टार्ट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच एंड फ्रॉम अ डिफरेंट चैनल टू तो बंद कर लेते हैं तब तक हल्का
frameworks can be overwhelming. There are many libraries to choose from and no proper step-by-step guides that will teach you how to use these libraries to their fullest potential. That's why, in this video, you'll learn the most popular JavaScript library used by hundreds of thousands of developers worldwide, React.js. Hi there! If you want to learn everything from the essential JSX syntax all the way to more advanced React topics like state, hooks, data fetching, and more, you've come to the right place. I'll first give you a high-level overview of what React is and why do we even use it. And then we'll quickly dive into the code, create our first React.js application, learn about JSX, which forms the core React.js syntax, and learn about the best file and folder structure when working with React. Most importantly, in the end, I'll teach you how you can build a React.js application so that you can actively internalize and independently apply everything you've learned in this video. By the end, you'll know precisely what you need to do to become an outstanding React developer capable of building phenomenal applications. With your React skills, you'll also be able to build native mobile applications. Isn't that crazy? Alongside this video, I've also prepared the ultimate React.js guide that covers everything you need to know to become a fantastic developer. The guide covers the complete React.js roadmap, JavaScript prerequisites, essential React.js concept, and project ideas that you can build and deploy to put on your portfolio and get a job. The link to the guide is in the description. You can download the guide and use it as a reference on your React.js journey whenever you're unsure what to learn next. Of course, the guide is completely free, and once again, the link is in the description. Still, I'd strongly recommend that you watch this video until the end because although the guide is great as a quick reference point, the video will provide you with absolutely everything you need to become a professional React web developer. And of course, exclusively in this video, we're going to build a cool React.js application. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Process a beginner if you can this is a front-end JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It was developed by Facebook and is maintained by Facebook and the open source community. React.js is a phenomenal library that is easy to understand, has excellent cross-platform support, has a fantastic community, and is one of the most loved libraries out there. There are also two great React.js competitors, Vue.js and Angular. These libraries and frameworks are mainly used to create fast and efficient single-page applications. Although these are great technologies, taking a quick look at Google Trends, we can clearly see that React.js is still in the lead by far. On the Stack Overflow Developer Survey, which is the biggest web development survey in the world, 40% of developers chose React. On the State of JS 2021, under front-end frameworks sorted by usage, React has been in the lead for 6 straight years. With everything I've mentioned, we can safely assume that React.js is the most popular JavaScript library amongst all other libraries and frameworks currently available. React.js also plays a major role in the most popular programming stack, MERN. MERN stack is a JavaScript stack that is used for easier and faster deployment of full-stack web applications. It is designed to make the development process smoother and easier. With the MERN stack, you can create absolutely any web application you can think of. With that said, now let's take a look at Filmpire, the first project-based course of the upcoming JSM Pro platform, which is built entirely in React. Here, we can browse around, select a category, select a genre, click on a movie poster to see more details about the movie, and everything happens so smoothly and instantly. And you can also notice that the website never reloads. You can see that on the top bar, which means that we don't request and load multiple HTML pages. Everything works with a single HTML page, and that happens because everything is done using JavaScript and React. While we browse the page, React updates what we see on a document object model, or DOM for short. But we don't update the DOM directly, like in HTML. So how does it actually work in React? React uses something called virtual DOM. So what's virtual DOM? A virtual DOM is nothing but a JavaScript object. It's a lightweight representation of the DOM. Updating the virtual DOM is much faster than updating the real DOM. Thus, React only updates the section of the page where the change was made, not the entire page, which is super efficient. Let me explain this in a simpler manner. When something changes in a component, we get a new React element. React
So you want to be a front-end engineer?
Hey, and
will then compose, which is super efficient. Let me explain this in a simpler manner. When something changes in a component, we get a new React element. React will then compare this element and the children of that element with the previous one, and it figures out what has changed. And then it will update a part of the real DOM to keep it in sync with the virtual DOM. So why does React use this so-called virtual DOM? Well, because virtual DOM is way faster than the regular DOM. The main advantage of this is that we don't have to worry about the JavaScript DOM API, and React will do all the heavy work for us. Now, you might be wondering, what are the prerequisites to learn such a great JavaScript library? There's only one prerequisite, and that is JavaScript. If you're wondering, which JavaScript syntax do you need to know to start learning React, or why would you even learn React and not code everything in vanilla JavaScript, then you must check out my previous video, the Ultimate Web Developer Roadmap. I've answered all of these questions and more in that video. The link to the video is going to be in the description. But if you don't feel like watching the previous video, I've also included all the prerequisites, essential React.js concept, React.js project ideas, and more in the Ultimate React.js guide, of course, in the description, completely for free. I hope this makes your life just a bit
try and call this function by saying my function. Yo, what's going on guys? You're watching JavaScript for Beginners Lesson 6, and in this video we're going to take a look at the basic syntax and structure of JavaScript. That's coming up. Alright then gang, so there's just a few things I want to go over when it comes to syntax and structure of JavaScript before we start writing any real code, and they're going to be beneficial for you as we go forward through this playlist. So there's just a few pointers I want to go through, and the first one is that JavaScript is case sensitive. I'll say that again because it's really important. It's case sensitive. Okay, this little alert function that I've written here, this wouldn't be the same as this, because we've added a capital A to the start of it. Okay, this alert function is a built-in function of JavaScript, and it's okay. This little alert function that I've written here, this wouldn't be the same as this, because we've added a capital A to the start of it. Okay, this alert function is a built-in function of JavaScript, and it's called alert with lowercase letters. If you were to try and call it with an uppercase letter, then that would be void. It wouldn't work. Okay, so it's case sensitive. The same goes for naming your own functions or variables. For example, if I was to write a function called my function and then specify some code in here, don't worry about all the syntax just yet. And then if later on I was to try and call this function by saying my function, this wouldn't work purely because I have a capital F here and not here. Alright, so case sensitivity is very important in JavaScript. The second point I want to make is that most things you do in JavaScript is a statement. Okay, you could have a statement to throw up an alert box like this. This is a statement in JavaScript. Or you could have a statement to change the color of your web page background, or a statement to change the position of a picture from left to right on your web page. They are all statements, okay, and each statement ends with a semicolon. All right. Now we could have another statement next to it, like I could do this. I don't know, hi again, like that, and run statements left to right. But if you carried on doing that, then this would get pretty unreadable and illegible quickly. So the best thing to do is pop them one on top of another like that. Okay. Now each statement ends with a semicolon. That's important as well. Now, technically speaking, if you miss out the semicolon, it will still perform a function like this. But if I was to write other statements down below, it wouldn't know where the first statement ended, and so it may get a bit confused and not work. So I want you to get in the habit of always adding your semicolon onto the end of statements. Okay, so ideally on top of each other, a new line for each statement, and always put your semicolons after a statement. Now, white space is not sensitive. Like I said, you can have another one of these statements right next to this, and you could put in 5 spaces, 10 spaces, 3 line breaks, 1 line break. It doesn't matter, okay? Generally what I do is, if it's grouped together with this statement, like if they're performing tasks that are similar to each other and relate to each other, I just do this and have them close next to each other, hugging each other on the next line. If they were something different, I'd maybe put a line break in or 2, then do a comment just above this to say that it's a different part. And that brings me on to comments. So comments are very similar to CSS comments, okay? We can comment out a segment of code by doing a /, then an asterisk, and then an asterisk and a /, and that would comment all the code out in between these two comments here, these two asterisks. If we want to just make a single line comment, we can do that by doing 2 /, and then everything on this line will be a comment. And this is what I generally do if I'm doing a little header in my JavaScript to remind myself and other developers working on this script what is coming up. So I could write here the second alert, just like that, and then that would remind me when I come to redo this code that this is the second alert. And I could do something like the first alert. Okay, so that's generally what I do. And yeah, if I'm just doing, sorry about this, if I'm just doing simple statements like this, then maybe I don't need these comments. But when you have like 20 lines of code between each comment, then it's useful just to remind yourself what's going on in that code. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention is that JavaScript, much like CSS, runs from top to bottom. So it will come in and it will perform this statement first of all. Come further down, then it will perform this statement, and then any subsequent statements down below. Now this is really important because if you have multiple statements that you want to perform in a particular order, you have to make sure you put them in that order in the JavaScript. For example, if I had a statement that was, say, make the image invisible, yeah, and then under that I'll say move the image from top to bottom, and then make the image visible. All right, so that would, first of all, say you've got an image at the top here like this. It would make it invisible, fade it out, then it would move it behind the scenes to the bottom, so you wouldn't see it moving at the bottom because it's still invisible. And then when it gets to the bottom, it will turn visible again. Now, if I was just to change the order of these two, that would impact the functionality of it significantly, okay? So first of all, your image would be here. It would move it from top to bottom, so you'd see it going right down to the bottom, then it would make it invisible and then visible, so you'll just see it like flicker at the bottom. Okay, so very important, the order of your JavaScript. So just to summarize the points we've made in this video, first of all, JavaScript is case sensitive, and I always remember that because of the way this JavaScript is written here. We have a uppercase J and an uppercase S, so it always reminds me that JavaScript is case sensitive. It contains many statements, all ending with a semicolon. I remember a statement is pretty much anything that you do in a JavaScript document. So changing the color of something, changing the position of something, changing the visibility of something. All those are statements, and they all end with a semicolon. One-line comments using 2 forward slashes, or multi-line comments using the forward slash and asterisk combination. And JavaScript runs from top to bottom. So all of these 6 points are really important, and you just want to ingrain them into your thought.
Alright guys, so
Hey everyone, Rajat here. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about ES6 features I use every single day to write my production ready.
Take a couple of people's names, see what they're saying.
Mansi Shah is cute to yaar Akash, and Mansi Shah, I must tell you that even though your surname is Shah, that doesn't mean you can harpo my boyfriend. So please don't call him cute at all. Only I get to
Great. Now get back to the conversation here.
Hey, so we
Wasn't that easy? Wasn't that easy? You looked at chat for a second and you came back.
Go back to the chat again.
I'll go back to the chat again. Quickly, see what
Now
they're
talk
saying.
to your parents and come back.
see
Okay.
अब तो मुझे ऐसे ही हो जाता है. Yes, what's her name? I forgot.
It doesn't matter. Chat has said this.
Chat said say. अब तो मुझे ऐसे ही हो जाता है.
There you go.
Yes.
All right. So
Now the
Akash,
game
go.
again.
Hey guys, today I'm starting a new tutorial series about JavaScript ES6 on my channel. In today's world, learning ES6 will be one of your biggest steps for writing modern JavaScript. Even if ES6 is around quite for a while, it is still a popular topic to talk about because it has brought major changes to JavaScript. And in this introduction video, we are going to talk about what ES6 is, why it is important to learn, and some of the most important features that ES6 brings to JavaScript, which I will explain them later on my following videos on this channel. But before we begin, if you are here for the first time, consider subscribing for You Will Get Notified or ECMAScript 2015, because it was released on 2015. Well, this isn't really that important, but people are confused with those terms like what is ECMAScript, what is JavaScript, what is ES, so there is a confusion with those namings, so I will try to explain them now. ECMAScript is the base language for some scripting languages, including JScript, CoffeeScript, JavaScript, and others as well. In addition, there is an organization called ECMA, which does all of the standardizations for ECMAScript, which also includes JavaScript. So when a newer version of JavaScript being released, it's not gonna be called like JavaScript version 6, but it is rather called as ECMAScript 6 or much shorter as ES6. And the next versions continue as ES7, ES8 and so on. You can find more information about this topic on Wikipedia. I'll put down the link below in the description part. So that's all about the naming of actually what ES6 is and where it comes from. But there is a more important topic that I would like to talk about. Why it is important to learn ES6 and why you should know it. There are a couple of good reasons why you need to learn ES6 if you are going to be a JavaScript developer. First of all, ES6 has major changes over JavaScript. Nothing is going to be the same after starting to write code with the features of ES6, and if you are familiar with JavaScript, like JavaScript ES5, which is the older version, then you're gonna like ES6 a lot. Other reasons are that ES6 brings solutions to some important issues of JavaScript and also extends it. Like for example, ES6 supports the class keyword, which haven't existed before in JavaScript, and that makes a lot easier to write object-oriented JavaScript. Also, one of the other most important reasons is that today's modern frameworks like React or Vue.js, they all support ES6 and actually we use them together. So if you are going to use these modern frameworks in your project, it's a good idea to be familiar with ES6 first. Now let's see here quickly some of the most important features that ES6 brings, and I'm gonna cover them in my following videos. And I will also try to show the features with the same JavaScript like how it was before ES6 and after ES6. So in the very next video, you are going to start learning the two new keywords for variable declarations that ES6 brings, such as let and constant. After that, we're gonna talk about arrow functions, which is also a...
Hey everyone, Rajat here. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about ES6 features I use every single day to write my production ready JavaScript code. These features have greatly improved how I code using JavaScript. So I go over these features one by one, and I hope that you guys will also be able to understand these things and will be able to incorporate these features in your day-to-day coding task. So let's begin. So the very first feature I have adopted in ES6 was the block scope variable let and const. So if I want to create a variable, I do this instead of writing var. because this helps me in preventing issues related to the hoisting thing. Now, if you have learned a little bit of JavaScript, you know that it supports hoisting, that variables, those are defined anywhere in a scope, gets hoisted to the top of the scope, right? So let and const helps me in preventing those block related issues. So for creating my variables, I always resort to using let in case I want to reassign it to something else later in the program, or const. I use const heavily in order to create variables whose value I'm not going to change later in the program. If later on I want to change the value, I go back and change it to let. Okay, so by default I use const. So the next thing I use is the string interpolation thing. So let's suppose I have a variable name and the variable's value is Rajat, and if I want to produce the output hello Rajat, this is the conventional way, right? Hello, and then concatenate it with name. So this will print hello Rajat, but using string concatenation I can readily evaluate this value inside the template. How to do it? This is a syntax. Put the backticks and inside this write your normal string part, and in order to evaluate a value you have to use this dollar curly braces notation and write your value here. Again, if we are going to compile this thing, I'm going to get the same output. So instead of using this, I use this all the time. I no longer use this syntax. It really helps me in knowing what the output is going to be. And even for creating variables, I use this. Constant hello message is going to be hello, and then again the string interpolation syntax. So this works even for assignment. So I use string interpolation all the time. The third thing I constantly use in my JavaScript programs is the arrow function. Constant hello is equals to the arrow function. So this is the notation. This is the arrow function. If I want to evaluate this function, I have to simply call hello later on. So this helps me in avoiding issues related to this variable, because in JavaScript this has so many meanings depending upon the context. Using the arrow syntax, this variable always have the value of the enclosing scope. So this helps me in preventing all the issues related to this variable, and those are some significant issues that you can encounter. So I use arrow functions all the time. So I will demonstrate. So if I compile this thing, nothing will happen, but if inside these curly braces I can write my normal function code. So I am going to write hello world again over here, okay, and I'm going to compile it, and hello world is going to be produced to the console. I write a lot of React code, and even in my React components I use arrow functions to deal with the click events and all. So if I can show you a sample React component, so this is how I write it: component and props, okay, a return whatever div, or you can write button, okay, on click do something and press me. Okay, so to create this do something, I create yet another arrow function inside the React component arrow function. So this is what I do, and over here I can do whatever I want to, right? So this is how I write my React components as well. So arrow function really helped me out in keeping my code succinct and to the point. The fourth thing I use in ES6 is the spread operator. So let's suppose if you have an array like this and one more array like, yeah, so you have two arrays like this. What if you want to merge them? Using the spread operator, you can easily merge those by using this syntax. So this is the spread operator, and after this you have to write the name of the array and again name of the array. Okay, so C is going to be an array which is going to be the container for all of these 6 elements. So if I print C over here, I will get this array. So this makes it really easy for me to, you know, concatenate arrays and do stuff with array. And this spread syntax also works for functions. So let's suppose I have a function do something again, and if I want to do A, B and then C. So this here means that if I'm going to provide an infinite list or a finite list to this do something function, the very first argument is going to be assigned to A, the second argument is going to be assigned to B, and all the remaining arguments are going to become an array. Okay, so all the remaining items will become a part of an array, and that array will be assigned to C. Okay, so spread operators is really helpful when dealing with this sort of syntax or merging arrays. The fifth thing I use all the time in ES6 is destructuring. So let's suppose I have an object constant human, okay, and it has some property like name, it can be anything, age, it can be again anything, right? So let's suppose I want to just get the name property of the object. Using destructuring, I can get it like this. Okay, so I have only extracted name, and this name variable is going to be created in this particular scope. So destructuring only cherry picks the properties you are interested in from any object. So this destructuring thing works for arrays as well. So let's suppose I have an array, constant array is like 1, 2 and 3. I can do this constant A, B, okay, and then array, and over here I can again print the value of A and B, and A and B is going to assume the value of 1 and 2 because here array destructuring is happening, here object destructuring is happening. So picking values out of objects and arrays become really efficient and readable while using destructuring. And destructuring also works for functions. So let's suppose I have a function and do something again. I want this function to accept an object, and from that object I just want to extract a few values I am interested in. So traditionally using ES5 I would have done this. So let's suppose I took in the object this thing, okay, let's not values to accept an object, and from that object I just want to extract a few values I am interested in. So traditionally using ES5 I would have done this. So let's suppose I took in the object this thing, okay, let's not call it object, so obj, okay, obj I just want to use and readable while using these destructuring, and destructuring also works for functions. So let's suppose I have a function and do something again. I want this function to accept an object, and from that object I just want to extract a few values I am interested in. So traditionally using ES5 I would have done this. So let's suppose I took in the object this thing, okay, let's not call it object, so obj, okay, and from obj I just want to use obj.name, right? So this would be the traditional approach if I want to use the name property of the input parameter, right? Using destructuring I can simply do this name. So the destructuring will happen over here. There is a technical term for this, that is parameter context matching. Okay, so this is known as parameter context matching, and over here I do not have to use this now. I can simply use name, okay, and I can show you how this works. Do something and then I'm going to pass in the put in this value. So over here I have gotten a Rajat because the destructuring, put in this value. So over here I have gotten a Rajat because the destructuring has happened over here. I have already extracted the name property from the incoming object. This is the incoming object, and I extracted a Rajat because the destruct has happened over here. I have already extracted the name property from the incoming object. This is the incoming object, and I can simply use it then. So no more cluttering the functions body with object dot object dot and object dot for accessing every single property. The last thing I use almost every single day is the object dot assign function. Okay, this function helps you in creating the shallow clones of any object or in merging several objects into one. I will show you how. So let's suppose you have an object again, constant human, okay, the name is again Rajat, the age is again 33, okay. So let's suppose I want to create a shallow copy of this thing. So using object assign I can easily do the human copy and write this object dot assign and create a new blank object. So this is going to be the target object. All the properties are going to be assigned to this thing, and this thing will be assigned to human copy, okay. And after this thing you have to write all the objects you would like to copy things from. So I am going to put human, and if I console printed console.log human copy, I will get a copy of my human object. Now I can perform operations on human copy without changing the human object. But you have to keep one thing in mind, this is a shallow copy. So if your underlying properties are intent objects, they won't be copied, only the reference would be copied. So this is going to be the topic for another day, but for shallow copy it really works great. One more thing I can do with this thing is overriding things. So let's suppose I want to create human copy, but I would like to keep all the properties same, but I would like to inject one more property into the human copy. So I can do it using this. So as we have already learned that this particular object is going to contain all the properties that are there in the subsequent objects. So it is going to be the collection of all the properties that are there in any of these objects. Okay, so I'm going to introduce one more property, address, and it is going to be earth. Now if I print human copy, now these two properties come from human. This address property earth comes from this second object. So I have successfully merged two objects into one. Let's suppose you have something like default options or default settings, and you want to provide a functionality where you want users to be able to customize some settings. So let's suppose by default your application opens up with the light theme, but you want your users to be able to pick the dark theme if they want to. So here you want to override things using this sort of syntax. You can easily do that. So these are all the ES6 features I use every single day. I hope that I was able to impart some sort of insights into what you can actually do with these interesting features. In case you want to learn more about ES6, let me know. I will record a detailed video about the ES6 features. Here I have given you a cursory glance over things.
ऑलराइट गाइस, सो अब हम यहाँ पर एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट देखेंगे जिसका इंतज़ार मुझे तो बेसब्री से था। उसका नाम है एरो फंक्शंस। और यहाँ पर मैं करूँगा क्या कि ट्यूटोरियल 41 है, क्योंकि ये 41.js के नाम से एक स्क्रिप्ट बनाएंगे, उसको इंक्लूड करेंगे। और स्क्रिप्ट बनाने में ज़्यादा टाइम वेस्ट हो जाता है कभी कभी, लेकिन यार क्या करें, बिना स्क्रिप्ट बनाए कुछ कर भी नहीं सकते। 41.js और मैं करूँगा क्या कि इसको इंक्लूड कर लूँगा और मैं यहाँ पर लिखूँगा दिस इज ट्यूटोरियल 41। हाँ, टाइम बचाने के लिए थोड़ा तेज़ लिख रहा हूँ। एनीवेज, मैं यहाँ पर क्या करूँगा, लाइव सर्वर अपना स्टार्ट करूँगा और मेरा जो लाइव सर्वर है वो स्टार्ट हो जाएगा। और अगर मैं यहाँ पर Ctrl+Shift+I दबाऊँगा कंसोल खोलने के लिए, तो ये देखो यहाँ पर आ गया दिस इज ट्यूटोरियल 41। इसको रिलोड करूँगा, ये एरर चले जाते हैं। अब यहाँ पर हम करेंगे क्या, जो कुछ भी लिखेंगे वो यहाँ पर आएगा, console.log करेंगे तो हमको यहाँ पर दिखाई देगा। तो स्टार्ट करते हैं सिंपल फंक्शन से। हमने फंक्शंस तो देखे ही थे, और जैसे कि मान लो मैं हैरी नाम का एक फ़ंक्शन लिखता हूँ, और क्या कर रहा हूँ मैं, हैरी नाम का एक फ़ंक्शन लिखता हूँ, console.log दिस इज़ द बेस्ट पर्सन एवर। ठीक है, मैंने यहाँ पर लिखा। और अभी दिखाऊंगा कंसोल, तो कुछ नहीं होगा कंसोल में, क्योंकि फंक्शन को करना पड़ता है कॉल। और अगर मैंने एक बार फंक्शन को कॉल कर दिया और उसके बाद दिखाऊंगा, तब क्या होगा, दिस इज़ द बेस्ट पर्सन एवर आएगा। इसमें कुछ नया नहीं था। आप कहेंगे हैरी भाई क्या इसमें नया था ही नहीं कुछ। अगर मैं यहाँ पर लिख दूँ कॉन्स्ट हैरी इज इक्वल टू फंक्शन, कुछ इस तरह से लिखूँ अगर मैं, और हैरी करूँ, तब भी वही होगा। आप लोग कहेंगे इसमें भी कुछ नया नहीं था, ये भी मुझे आता था। चलो फिर एरो फंक्शन के बारे में देखते हैं। अब मुझे क्या इतना लिखने की ज़रूरत थी नहीं, मुझे इतना लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं थी, मैं कुछ ऐसे भी कर सकता था। मैं दिखाता हूँ कैसे कर सकता था। तो मैं कुछ ऐसे कर सकता था। मैं अगर इसको कुछ इस तरह करूँ और कुछ इस तरह कर देता अगर, और इक्वल टू ऐसे कर देता, तब क्या होता कि मेरा फंक्शन लिखने की मेहनत बच जाती और ये शॉर्टकट में मेरा काम हो जाता। और यहाँ पर देखो कि अगर अब मैं आपको कंसोल दिखाऊँ तब भी वही आ रहा है और कोई एरर नहीं आ रहा है, मतलब कि ये एक वैलिड सिंटेक्स है। लेकिन यहाँ पर मैं अगर कंसोल डॉट लॉग ना करूँ और इसकी जगह एक वैल्यू को रिटर्न कर दूँ, यानी कि मैं कुछ इस तरह से रिटर्न कर दूँ। इनफैक्ट मैं काम करता हूँ कि इसको ऐसे रहने देता हूँ और एक दूसरा फंक्शन बनाता हूँ और उसका नाम रखता हूँ ग्रीट, और मैं कुछ इस तरह से लिखूँगा और यहाँ पर लिखूँगा रिटर्न गुड मॉर्निंग, और मैं कंट्रोल एस से इसको सेव कर दूँगा। तो मैं यहाँ पर क्या करता हूँ, सबसे पहले तो टाइटल डालता हूँ एरो फंक्शंस, ठीक है, थोड़ा सा क्लीन रखता हूँ ताकि ये जो कोड है वो आपका नोट्स की तरह भी काम करे। और यहाँ पर मैंने जो लिखा है कॉन्स्ट हैरी इज इक्वल टू फंक्शन, ये थिंग नॉर्मल फंक्शन, इनफैक्ट रेगुलर फंक्शन लिखता हूँ इसको, और यहाँ पर कन्वर्टिंग इट टू एन एरो फंक्शन, यानी कि उसको एक एरो फंक्शन में फंक्टियन, एक एरो फंक्शन में कन्वर्ट करना, ठीक है। अब क्या करेंगे कि कॉन्स्ट ग्रीट इज इक्वल टू फंक्शन रिटर्न गुड मॉर्निंग, ठीक है। तो मैंने एक नया फंक्शन बनाया, फंक्शन रिटर्निंग समथिंग, ठीक है। और ये जो हैरी भैया इनको ऊपर ऊपर भेज देते हैं, और ग्रीट इज इक्वल टू फंक्शन गुड मॉर्निंग। अगर मैं अभी ग्रीट को कॉल करूँ तब क्या होगा, कुछ नहीं, कुछ करता ही नहीं है, तो सिर्फ रिटर्न करता है वैल्यू, तो कुछ नहीं आएगा। लेकिन अगर मैं कंसोल डॉट लॉग कर दूँ ग्रीट को, यानी कि अगर मैं कुछ इस तरह से कर दूँ, कंसोल डॉट लॉग कर दूँ ग्रीट को, तब क्या होगा, तब यहाँ पर गुड मॉर्निंग लिख कर आ जाएगा। लेकिन क्या मुझे ये लिखने की ज़रूरत थी भी, अगर मैं कुछ इस तरह करता, मैं अगर कुछ इस तरह करता ग्रीट इज़ इक्वल टू, तब भी तो काम हो जाता, हाँ बिल्कुल काम हो जाता। लेकिन मैं आप लोगों को बताता हूँ कि इसी के साथ साथ आप लोगों को एक लाइन अगर आप लिख रहे हैं सिर्फ, तब मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ कि क्या है। ये देखो आपने इस तरह लिखा और ये आपने अगर रिटर्न गुड मॉर्निंग किया तो आपका गुड मॉर्निंग यहाँ पर आ चुका है। इसका मतलब क्या हुआ, इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि आपने इसको एरो फंक्शन में कन्वर्ट कर दिया। लेकिन मैं आप लोगों को एक और मज़ेदार चीज़ ये बताऊंगा कि आप लोगों को ना ही तो ये ब्रेस लगाने की ज़रूरत है, आप सिर्फ ऐसी चीज़ ये बताऊंगा कि आप लोगों को ना ही तो ये ब्रेस लगाने की ज़रूरत है, आप सिर्फ ऐसे ही करोगे ना तब भी आपका काम हो जाएगा। ये देखो, सॉरी मैंने कुछ गड़बड़ करी है यहाँ पर। गड़बड़ मैंने ये करी है कि मुझे इसको रिटर्न करना था, मैंने क्या गड़बड़ करी है मुझे देखने दो। ओके, मैंने ब्रेस लगा दिया एक्स्ट्रा, आपका काम हो जाएगा। देखो आपका काम गड़बड़ करी है, मुझे देखने दो। ओके, मैंने ब्रेस लगा दिया एक्स्ट्रा, आपका काम हो जाएगा। देखो आपका काम यहाँ पर हो चुका है, गुड मॉर्निंग आ चुका है। तो मुझे यहाँ पर रिटर्न लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, तो मैं यहाँ लिख देता हूँ कि क्या लिखूँ, मैं एक काम करता हूँ कि लिखता हूँ वन लाइनर्स डू नॉट रिक्वायर ब्रेसेस, ठीक है। और आप लोगों को करली ब्रेसेस लगाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। अगर आप वन लाइनर्स लिख रहे हैं डायरेक्टली आप कुछ ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं, और रिटर्न भी लिख देता हूँ, तो आपको रिटर्न लगाने की ज़रूरत भी नहीं है, आपको ब्रेसेस भी लगाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। मैं लिख देता हूँ वन लाइन विल ऑटोमेटिकली रिटर्न, ठीक है, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ एक लाइन थी। और आप रिटर्न अगर यहाँ पे लिख भी देते हो तब भी वो रिडंडेंट होगा, अगर आप रिटर्न यहाँ पे लिख देते हो कुछ इस तरह से। लेकिन आप लोगों को फिर उस केस में क्या करना पड़ेगा, अगर आप रिटर्न कर रहे हो तो आपको पैरेंथेसिस भी करली ब्रेसेस भी लगानी पड़ेगी, कुछ इस तरह से लिखना पड़ेगा। लेकिन जब इनके बिना काम हो रहा है, वन लाइनर में अलाउ कर रहा है एरो फंक्शन बिना रिटर्न के और बिना करली ब्रेसेस के, तब आपको इस तरह लिखना चाहिए, ना कि उस तरह, ठीक है। गुड, अब हम यहाँ पर करेंगे क्या, आप लोगों को मैं और चीज़ बताऊँगा कि मान लो मैं कोई ऑब्जेक्ट रिटर्न करना चाहता हूँ, ठीक है। मान लो मेरा जो ग्रीट है वो एक ऑब्जेक्ट रिटर्न करता, ठीक है, तब क्या होता, तब एक ऑब्जेक्ट लिटरल मान लो मैं कुछ इस तरह से बनाता और ऑब्जेक्ट रिटर्न करता, ठीक है, तब क्या होता, तब एक ऑब्जेक्ट लिटरल मान लो मैं कुछ इस तरह से बनाता और मैं मान लो कुछ नेम को इस तरह करता, और हैरी एक सिंपल सा ऑब्जेक्ट है, लेकिन अगर मैं ऐसे करूँगा तो क्या होगा, यहाँ पर देखो मैं आपको दिखाऊँ अगर, तो ये अनडिफाइंड लिख कर आ रहा है, ये कह रहा है ये क्या दे दिया मुझे, जबकि मैं क्या एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा था, ग्रीट मुझे प्रिंट करके देगा नेम हैरी वाला ऑब्जेक्ट। तो कभी भी एक ऑब्जेक्ट को रिटर्न करा रहे हो वन लाइन में, तब आप लोग को इस तरह से ये लगाने की ज़रूरत है, पैरेंथेसिस। तो आप इस सिंटेक्स को समझने की बस कोशिश करो कि क्या शॉर्टकट आप मार सकते हो एरो फंक्शन की मदद से कम लाइन ऑफ कोड में कितना सारा काम कर सकते हो। तो ऑलवेज़ आप लोग फंक्शन इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो, ये जो बड़ा वाला सिंटेक्स है इसको हमेशा इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो, लेकिन कोशिश करें कि आप एरो फंक्शन इस्तेमाल करें। पूरा कभी कभी फंक्शन लिखना पड़ता है, फिर ब्रैकेट खोलना पड़ता है, उसके बजाय अगर हम ये कर दें तो कितना अच्छा रहेगा। तो अब यहाँ पर इसी का एक और वेरिएंट, वो ये कि अगर मान लो आपका ग्रीट एक स्ट्रिंग लेता है इनपुट में, और उसका नाम लेता बंदे का जिसको भी वो ग्रीट कर रहा है, मैं यहाँ पर हैरी दे रहा हूँ इसको। तो एक तो मेरे पास तरीका ये है, एक तो मेरे पास तरीका ये है कि मैं कुछ इस तरह से करूँ। एक तरीका मेरे पास ये है कि मैं कुछ ऐसे कर दूँ और यहाँ पर मैं नेम कर दूँ, और यहाँ पर मैं रिटर्न क्या कर दूँ, नेम प्लस गुड मॉर्निंग प्लस नेम, ठीक है, गुड मॉर्निंग प्लस नेम, ठीक है। तो ये तो हमने देखा है कि ये रिटर्न अपने आप हो जाएगा क्योंकि एक वन लाइनर है, और हमने ये भी देखा कि इसको हमें कर्ली ब्रेस लगाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। तो ये जो है हमारा गुड मॉर्निंग हैरी दे देगा। अगर आपको इस स्पेस देनी है तो मॉर्निंग पर दे सकते हैं, और ये गुड मॉर्निंग हैरी अब अच्छे से आ गया। लेकिन क्योंकि यहाँ पर सिर्फ एक ही आर्ग्यूमेंट है, और मैं अगर इसको हटा भी दूँ तब भी ये मेरा काम कर देगा। लेकिन अगर दो आर्ग्यूमेंट है, मान लो एक तो नाम लेता है मेरा, और उसके बाद एक एक एंडिंग भी लेता है कि एंडिंग क्या कर रहा है, ठीक है। तो नेम और एंडिंग, मैं सिर्फ एक सिंपल सा फंक्शन बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ। तो नेम और एंडिंग लेता है, तो मैं वैसे इसको ऐसे लिखूँगा, लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है कि एरो फंक्शन से मुझे ये जो पैरेंथेसिस है वो लगाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर दो आर्ग्यूमेंट्स हैं इस बार, इसलिए मुझे पैरेंथेसिस लगानी ही पड़ेगी हर हाल में। तो देखो पैरेंथेसिस लगाई तो ये ऐसे कह रहा है गुड मॉर्निंग हैरी बाय, और अगर मैं ये हटा देता हूँ तब क्या होगा, तभी मुझे एरर देगा, क्योंकि दो हैं यहाँ पर आर्ग्यूमेंट्स। दो एक से ज़्यादा आर्ग्यूमेंट होगा तब वो आपको एरर देगा, लेकिन अगर सिर्फ एक आर्ग्यूमेंट है तब आप क्या कर सकते हैं, कुछ इस तरह लिख सकते हैं। तो मैं अगर ये बाय को हटाऊँ, यानी कि एक ही आर्ग्यूमेंट है, तब बिना पैरेंथेसिस के काम हो जाएगा आपका। तो ना आपको फंक्शन लिखने की ज़रूरत पड़ी, ना आपको कर्ली ब्रेस खोलने की ज़रूरत पड़ी, ना आपको ये ब्रैकेट लगाने की ज़रूरत पड़ी। आपने सिर्फ ये कह दिया नेम इज़ इक्वल टू एरो, और उसके बाद गुड मॉर्निंग प्लस नेम प्लस एंडिंग। तो इस तरह आपने अपने एरो फंक्शन को यूज़ कर लिया। तो आपने देखा कि मल्टीपल पैरामीटर्स को पैरेंथेसिस की ज़रूरत पड़ती है। मैं लिख देता हूँ, parenthesis, but